I am Jack Scalia, and welcome to our show, Proud to Serve. When I'm asked about my politics, it's simple. I stand for the national anthem. I believe in the red, white, and blue. Mom's apple pie, a dog named Spot, God, guns, grits, our men and women in uniform who serve and protect our great nation, as well as our first responders. But that's me, and that's who I am. However, this show, Proud to Serve, is about our guests, people who have had their fair share of trials and tribulations and have found a way to negotiate their way right through it. It's kind of like honoring your creation, trusting your instincts, believing in your dreams, creating your destiny. And our guest today is one very special person who has been accomplishing that for quite a while now. She has been a war journalist, a videographer, has done 10 documentaries. She has been basically embedded with the Special Forces world for a better part of 15 years. And there are many other things that you're going to learn about this fantastic woman. She's a friend of mine. She's another blonde. She's beautiful. She's very talented. And I can't ask her where she just came back from because she'd probably have to kill me. Please welcome to the show, Alex Quade.
Oh,
what a pleasure it is to have you.
Thank you so much, Jack. I love your patriotic socks, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And you said grits, so you mean like true grit?
True grits.
Or you mean like southern grits with shrimps?
Which, yes, I mean yellow grits. That's basically this Louisiana, South Carolina, and I do have it with spicy shrimp. It's my favorite. Okay, so I mean you've had an amazing life in many, many ways. And when I say you have been embedded with the Special Forces for the better part of 14 or 15 years, that was after some other things happened that took you into that world. Can you just talk to us about the kind of the beginning of it?
Oh, sure. Well, I've been doing war zones for, since 1998, basically. But my first foray into a real war zone was my husband was blown up in Sarajevo. I got a phone call at 3 a.m. in the morning from CNN. He was a sound tech for CNN. And the vice president of CNN called and said, Alex, do you know your husband's blood type? And I did not at the time because we were newlyweds. And so...
Were you married?
Yes, we had eloped to Vegas, and an Elvis impersonator gave me away. And yes, and so I did not know very much about my husband at that point, including his blood type. But off he went to Sarajevo and got blown up. And within a few hours, I was on a plane with another CNN executive and a suitcase of money to try to get him out. And he was very polytraumatically injured, and this was before Iraq and Afghanistan, where we knew about polytraumas, we knew about IEDs, we knew about the whole wounded warrior care and structure and support network. So I became a caregiver, and it made me a better reporter. He luckily survived after years of surgeries and was able to get back to work, but it made me a better reporter because I had empathy for our families who would be going through very similar things after 9/11. Being able to try to tell their stories, to answer their questions, to answer the questions of the families. It's very personal, having been through that. Right.
Did that serve you later on with people that you
Absolutely.
As you further went into your newer career?
Absolutely, because I ended up after 9/11 pretty much embedding with our troops nonstop with every service that we have, and it made me very aware of what our troops and their families back home are dealing with, and that it's very important to try to answer their questions and try to treat them with dignity and respect when they're being interviewed in these very tough situations. I ended up being the first reporter to break down the doors to cover our wounded warriors. At that point, they were only allowing a couple of our anchor stars to go to Launchstool or to Walter Reed. To cover a little bit of the Wounded Warrior story.
Right, so you kind of pioneered a number of steps as things progressed, as OIF and OEF and then OIF became more involved. So you were knocking down doors or breaking, or kicking in doors with the people you hang out with.
Yes, it's very direct action now, and it's kicking in the doors and going in with the stack. But no, it's always been trying to do something that has not been done, and trying to do open the doors for stories that need to be told. And if we have our troops over there who are serving, who are sacrificing, the American public, the taxpayer, they should know a little bit about, without getting into TTPs, techniques, tactics, and procedures, without violating operational security, without compromising any missions. There should be some documentation, even in the very secret squirrel world of all of these special operations forces that we have, whether it's Rangers, Delta, MARSOC, the SEALs, on and on and on, OGA, the CIA and other government forces.
Right. Now, you mentioned these names because
Yes.
you've been embedded with all of them.
Right.
Okay, so you're not just like agency name dropping.
No.
I know that you've been there
Right.
and you've been in the S with them as it's happened.
The S.
Yeah,
That's a nice and very polite way of putting it. I'm going to try very hard to be polite and ladylike with you, Jack.
You could have your special forces influence side come out if you want. It's all good here. So now you conservatively, how many missions have you gone along with?
Oh, I would not even, and this is not to brag or to, I have no idea. I really have absolutely no idea because I've been pretty much perpetually embedded. And so every day that I'm over there, I'm going out on a mission. And every night that I'm over there, I'm going out on a mission. So it's not just, I'm over there for 24 hours. Usually when it comes to reporters having the access to a special operations team, whether it's a Green Beret A team, we'll just keep using them as an example for now. If a reporter is granted access, which is a very hard thing to get, there's so many hoops and things you have to, I call it the permission gauntlet of pain. There's all these hoops that you have to go through, and it's usually if you are granted and you're with a mega news organization, you may be allowed to have 24 hours of access, and I like to affectionately say babysat by a public affairs officer in tow the entire time or more. And so I managed to work around the system and on and off, for instance, with 10th Special Forces Group, which are the Green Berets, managed to basically on and off be embedded with them over a 2-year period and then go through their pre-mission train up back home and learn some of their skills and that kind of thing so that when I'm overseas with them that they feel comfortable about my skill set, and if it became a very bad day, as they like to say, that I would either know what to do, whether it's they train me up on their weapons. Journalists are not supposed to be combatants. They're not supposed to have weapons.
They're not supposed to.
They are not supposed to. And I know that when OIF 1 kicked off, that one of my journalist colleagues from Fox News Channel, Geraldo, I think he was letting everybody know that he was packing heat and he was hoping to take out Saddam on his own, and good for him, but that's not what journalists are supposed to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like a no-no to even talk about it, even if you are given that permission.
Absolutely, but the Green Berets, they wanted to make sure that since I was out there alone with them, I had foregone having a camera crew and everything. I'm a one-man band, so it's just me and my little video cameras, and it's one less reason for them to say no to having me along, and it's also because I am taking the space of somebody who matters.
A warrior.
A gunner. They don't need reporters, they don't need all of the entourage, they need guys who are gunslingers. This is real deal. It's not we're going out on vanilla missions just for the reporter. So they would school me up on all of their weapons, with the idea being that if it's a very bad day, as they like to say, that, and they were all slaughtered around me, as they would say, that I would be able to pick up one of their weapons and either take care of business or save one bullet for myself, is what they told me, because the alternative, we've seen what they've done to journalists. We've seen what they did with Daniel Pearl in Afghanistan.
The first one.
Yeah, the very first one, and that's continued with ISIS, with Stephen Sotloff and James Foley, and the threat is real. And I know also my presence with the Green Beret teams and other special ops teams puts them more at risk because I am a target. I stick out. I try to blend as much as I can. I mean, usually the spec ops teams.
Look at you, blend. That's
That's
my cousin Vinny. I'm blending.
We can go there. No, I look like them. I smell like them. I'm not wearing, combat. I'm not wearing military fatigues. I'm not wearing, the uniform. But I try to be as nondescript as you can possibly tell.
So
everything's covered.
Khaki.
You do not see hair. There's no hair. There's no makeup. Everything's tucked up in a helmet.
Right.
And I mean, we're usually doing night missions anyway. But I would be a very big propaganda get.
Sure, high value target.
But any Western journalist would be, because we come with propaganda value. They would like to get a message out if they are captured. So.
Now, I know we've been friends for a number of years, and we haven't seen each other for a number of years because you're always embedded somewhere. And
we've been a little busy.
Yeah. However, we always try to touch base here and there, and it's first and foremost always concerned about your safety and how you're doing. However, you seem to manage to get yourself into some situations where the expression is getting your teeth rattled for our viewing or listening viewing audience. That's being IED in the vehicle you're in, or being IED from a few meters away, and things like that. So if you would be willing to share a couple of those stories about where you were in it and things happened to you.
Oh, you mean the there I was, those kind of stories. Yeah. I'm doing this for you. I don't usually like to talk about me because I'm old school journalist. I like to have the stories be about the troops and the people that I'm covering. And by virtue of being embedded with these teams, obviously the danger they're in is the same danger that I am exposed to. So whatever they're going through, I'm there, and hopefully am able to document what they're going through. But in the course of all of this, and I know that we will be probably throwing to a piece of video in a little while, but there was a Chinook helicopter that I was supposed to be on that was shot down. And
they pulled you off at the last minute,
we had a chalk change, which means basically they switched out right before who was going to be, they did a reconfiguration of who was going to be in which helicopter for this mega air assault. And so that was one thing. There was a mega firefight afterwards. I was on the ground then to cover that, and felt a very big sense of responsibility for the 7 souls who perished, and then also the teams that had to go in under extreme Taliban fire and go in and try to rescue these.
And you were with them?
I was with them. And but there was a while there where they didn't know where I was, just because, moving puzzle pieces. And so I feel a responsibility that I need to tell their stories.
Right, of course. And when I ask you these, it's not that I want you to talk. It doesn't come off that it's about you. I've known you long enough to get an idea of who you are, and it's always about telling their story about the men and the women who do serve and protect our nation and are downrange there and are in the S, as they call it. And life is hanging by a thread all the time. It could change it, in a firefight or whatever it may be. So I just would like the viewing and listening audience to know what it's like for you yourself. That's pretty much why I asked. So, but I mean, you've been wounded. You've been hurt.
Yes, I have. And I was in a firefight with a Green Beret A team in Diyala province, which at that point was one of the most dangerous places in Iraq at that time. They called it the Heart of Darkness. And we were in a firefight, and there was a moment where there was a lull, and I had asked the team, may I go up and be a journalist and crawl up on the top of the vehicle and get some great, panoramas and shots and, that kind of thing, doing our job. And they said, go on up. And then all of a sudden things changed again, and I was directed in a very blunt way to get off the vehicle. So no glamorous thing as far as that I was shot and, this kind of thing. I jumped off the vehicle, had a very hard landing during the firefight, busted my ankle, busted my wrist, saved the camera, got in, still did the job, faked that I was fine for weeks until I could not fake it anymore. And I told the Green Berets, because I was trying not to let them see me limp, because just like them, you don't want to get out of the fight. You don't want to leave your battle buddies. You feel a responsibility to them and to the team. So I faked I was fine for a long time until I couldn't fake it anymore. And I told them that, well, I had a graceful moment like Miss America on a treadmill, and oops. So I came back and got myself sorted and went back over. But there's been IEDs, more IEDs than I can count. As far as when I was with CNN, I had the iconic VB IED, which is a vehicle-borne IED. I don't want to say gorgeous footage, but there's very iconic footage of a Marine Humvee that is basically being decimated. And luckily, nobody was killed. We didn't have any Marines killed in that, which is a godsend. But that footage now has been used all over Hollywood. You would know the footage if you saw it, but there's been more IEDs and being rattled than I can count, and more close calls than I can possibly count.
Thank you so much for being there to tell the stories of our guys and gals over the many number of years. I mean, you've been involved in Embedded more numbers of years than some men and women who are serving their country.
True, but I'm the one who's blessed. I get to spend quality time with hardworking individuals who are doing amazing things in very tough locations that nobody knows about.
Right.
And the American public should know a little bit. I mean, these stories, they don't have to come out for a while, especially with the special operations community, but an example, if you can imagine that, I mean, for instance, the Rangers, those are considered a Tier 1 operation, and the SEALs and and Delta. Can you imagine that if we had not heard about Black Hawk Down, and that took a journalist tracking these guys down, writing a book, and then of course now we know about the movie and everything, and that's now considered a moment in history, and that's a focal point that people, the entire American public, can say, oh, I understand a little bit about that. Can you imagine if their families didn't know about that, or even the American public had some sense of this happened? So, I mean, we don't have to do things that are going to compromise our special operators who are doing very, very dangerous things that not everybody needs to know about right now, but we need some sort of historical documentation for their families. Right,
and you've done a number of documentaries.
Yes.
I mean, you would have done like 10 or probably more.
I don't even count them. I just want to do my thing. I'm just laser focused. I just want to be overseas with the guys and and be able to share their stories, because it's a shame that there aren't more stories out there that we're missing. You know, we really need to see them.
Well, one of your documentaries that you've done is Chinook Down.
Yes.
Okay, so while we're here just chatting, and we mentioned it right now, so let's just kind of cut to the screen and see a little bit of that footage.
To really live, you must almost die.
And we currently have some units inside our formation in contact, setting the conditions for us to come in and do our air assault.
Oh God, here we go again.
What are some of the things you guys are concerned about when you're actually going into a potentially hot landing zone?
You know you're going into a fight. Nobody even expects to die, but you know you're going into combat. That could happen.
You're trying very hard to avoid civilian casualties, fratricide, friendly fire incidents.
This is the classified shootdown of a U.S. Chinook helicopter by surface-to-air missile.
And as soon as I looked up, I seen a missile streak up into the air, and boom, and it blew up.
And I heard on the radio, Chinook down, and I was like, my heart just jumped.
This is the firefight to leave no one behind.
We're 7 guys, we're out here all by ourselves.
Well, you were outnumbered.
We're definitely outgunned.
Anybody that was alive there is not around anymore.
Do you dwell much on the people that were on the other end?
Our job is to save Americans. I mean, sometimes that does involve getting rid of the bad guys.
They shot down some of our comrades. That's personal.
To really live, you must almost die. Chinook Down, a film by award-winning war reporter Alex Quade.
Powerful, intense, and that's how it really happened.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was honored to be able to spend time with heroes, and we had 7 souls who were lost, and they cannot be, we want to remember them and their families, because that's what this is all about. But that was the biggest air assault, one of the biggest air assaults in the entire Afghan war that we've had. And it went on, it continued and went on as far as assaulting towns and things from, that was the first hour. The Chinook getting shot down was the first hour of a mission that lasted weeks and weeks and weeks.
Oh my gosh. Now, when you do these kind of documentaries and you talk and when you tell the story, you show the story, and then you show it visually, then you tell it with your words. Is it ever acknowledged in any way by family members or people within that Special Forces community, or if you're with Recon, or if you're with the U.S. Navy SEALs, or?
I am so glad that you brought that up, because people ask me why I do this, and it's not for the fame, the glory, the ooh, I'm on TV, glamour, anything like that. I hear from the families after every single one, every single story that I do. The Gold Star families, they become family for me. It's very personal.
Right.
I sometimes feel like I hope I haven't crossed the line as a journalist, but it's very personal for me. And I want the families and the people that are allowing me their trust, the operators, the Green Berets, the Rangers, Delta, the SEALs, all of these. I want them to have an experience where they feel like they can trust me. And that's very hard for them as operators to trust journalists.
Right, so what is, I know anytime there's a loss of life and that you're involved in one way or another, or directly involved, or you've seen it happen, and now that it's acknowledged by the family, what would be the moment that just kind of, just does that?
For instance, with Chinook down, which you just saw, I had a phone call later from the Apache pilot who had been dodging surface-to-air missiles, and he had been providing the close air support for this downed Chinook as the teams were going in trying to battle Taliban up close and personal, trying to make sure that we didn't have another Black Hawk Down situation where the bodies were being dragged out.
Right.
And he went through and he is happy, he's okay with me sharing this, it's not a HIPAA violation. He went through very extreme post-traumatic stress, and he said to me afterwards, Alex, it was talking with you, it was sharing these stories that you helped me come home from the war. And that just, even right now, it gives me goosebumps. There is a reason why I do this. In your eyes, too. Yeah, it's not just about the storytelling, but it's the human element, and it's that universal truth. And if you do it right, and like what you're doing right now, it's about having a connection with somebody that it means something.
Right, exactly. And I'm looking at this necklace that you're wearing. What is that?
Yes. So, and we can do a close-up and all that later, but this is this is shrapnel. It's I know it's in a little locket, but there is shrapnel and a little bit of brain matter, which sounds just lovely and appetizing. But this is shrapnel from a Medal of Honor recipient, from Colonel Bob Howard, who was a Ranger in Delta, and he was a Special Operations Group SOG in Vietnam. He was nominated for the medal 3 times, 9 Purple Hearts. He is one of the most highly decorated soldiers in all of U.S. history. There's always a battle of, like, was it Audie Murphy? Was it this? Was it?
Right.
But he basically became my mentor. He hated reporters, hated, as he put it, he doesn't like whiners, complainers, fat people, or women.
But he didn't mind beautiful blondes.
No. But somehow he decided that I was worthy of his mentoring, and he took me under his wing and treated me like an adopted son. So,
in his words,
an adopted son. And before he passed away, he basically blood-winged me with a bloody Ziploc bag at an event at the Reagan Library, which I think we may have actually met at with Gary Sinise and some folks.
Right.
And he said, Quade, you don't need no stinking awards. This will keep you motivated. It's real North Vietnamese Army shrapnel fired from the prone position. They kept it in, clamped the arteries shut, and it's been giving me a headache for 42 years. This will keep you motivated. You need to continue the mission. You need to Charlie Mike of telling the stories of our troops for their families who resent their deployments and their constant absence, and for the American public who has forgotten, so they do not forget. You need to Charlie Mike. You need to continue the mission of telling the stories, especially of our operators, our special operators, because their stories don't get told. So no pressure there, but this is what keeps me honest. It stays at my heart. It's tucked in when I'm in combat. It's right in there. And this is what reminds me to stay the course, to Charlie Mike.
Scene. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Alex Quade, war journalist, war videographer, woman extraordinaire, has a deep, loving relationship with our men in Special Forces and our women. And we are so grateful for you documenting and telling these stories visually and then with your words. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jack.
Real pleasure, darling. And as always, God, family, country. Godspeed you all.